Are they? The four angels of A. A what? Just A. Although I think it could refer to Aleph, which is the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and in Kabbalah, Aleph is the beginning of the whirling motion of all creation. So creation is a dance, and Aleph or Alet is the beginning, is the first step of that dance, the beginning of all. So it's where the Alets appear in all four elements. So I think that's what the four angels of A. Um, but I'm using angel here as a metaphor, although perhaps they actually exist now that I've created them as metaphor. Contemplate on that. Um, so we have the essential dilemma of Gnostics and Gnosticism, which is of the world and in the world. Um, so Gnostics are necessarily connected to the world because they're in the world, because soul, which is represented by this red circle here, is in the world, which is represented by the green circle here. And so the great compromise, you cannot escape the world. Because you're in the world, you may be imprisoned in the world. You may be here by trickery, by devilry of some kind or another, or even because you allowed it to happen on some level. But soul is trapped or in this world, so you're going to be necessarily, you know, attached to or aligned to worldliness. And yet, on the other hand, because you're not in the world, you're not of the world, you are disconnected from the world in the sense that soul has nothing to do with the stuff of this universe, of these created worlds, of the demiurge. The soul is of a different order of stuff, as it were. Um, and so there's a constantly reoccurring contradiction here because, you know, as I asked the question in my first ever video on this channel, why don't Gnostics just commit suicide if they hate the place so much? But they cannot escape this world, either through fakery or fantasy. And in a way, suicide is a kind of sort of belongs to the same class, same category. It's a subcategory of fantasy, really, and even fakery. Contemplate on that. So the angels of A are here to help us to overcome this contradiction and to reconcile this contradiction on a continuous basis, on a daily basis, if you like. And the first angel is the angel of analysis, which refers to the quarter of air, which traditionally in magic is associated with the intellect, with analytical research and intellectual pastimes and intellectual prowess, even. And it's the analysis that is of great importance here, and brings reconciliation between being in the world and of the world. Because when you look at any phenomenon, or any situation, or any person, or any collective, they're not just there, you know. I mean, it's like the thing about a simple story for simple folk, you know. Putin, boo, Ukrainian Jew, hooray. That's a very simplistic way of looking at the world, because how do Putins of the world get to where they got to? What's the story behind the conflict in the Ukraine at the moment? How did Joseph Stalin get where he got? But apart from that, I mean, how is salt made, for example? How is sodium chloride made? How do things happen? So You're looking at the world of humanity and you're looking at the world of nature, and you're asking the question how and why and when and so forth and so on. Why does this happen? Why does this happen? The 2-year-old is asking questions all the time. Why? And this analysis, or the pursuit of knowledge, the pursuit of analyzing nature and humanity, brings a certain appreciation of the results, of the conclusions that might be drawn from such analysis. So the angel appreciation rears up here. And it's not just appreciation of beauty, for example, but appreciation of the way things are, perhaps slightly sardonically, slightly ironic appreciation. The adversarial algorithm of the universe. Everything is in conflict with itself and with its environment and with other competing elements, and that's how the world goes round. And the interplay of creation, preservation, and destruction, those forces, and other such universals that might be concluded from an analysis and observation of this world and of these worlds. So it's an appreciation. In other words, philosophy brings comfort. The analysis of what's wrong and how things are brings a certain comfort to it, not in terms of trying to put things right, although this could be part of it. Technologies could arise for righting things that are wrong, or creating advantage to individual or collective. But there's not much you can do about it. You're sort of a passive observer, if you like, an objective observer. And this brings a sort of emotional stability of appreciation for things, ever so slightly tinged with irony, but or even cynicism, because I mean there is love for the world on one hand, but there is mistrust of the world on the other, and these two are sort of in a kind of dynamic balance with each other. You see. So now we come to the angel of acquiescence, and in a sense, it's the idea that that the things that you need to do, you can make them things that you acquiesce to do. So instead of feeling you're obligated to do things, you recognize that your will is to fulfill the needs of this world, and the worldly needs and your bodily needs, for example. And of course, being Good Friday today, we have in the Christian narrative, we have the idea of Christ acquiescing to his sacrifice. In other words, he's not sacrificed by trickery or demonic possession, or as some kind of collateral damage. By his own free will, he acquiesces. And you can acquiesce to fix the shingles, to change the diapers, to go to work every day. And the world has your attention. It has your minimal attention, perhaps, but it does have your attention. And you realize that you have acquiesced to be where you are and to be doing what you're doing. And we come into this sort of formula of does not matter, need not be. In the sense, you've acquiesced in the minimal sense of the word, acquiesce to the needs of this world, but ultimately they don't matter, and they don't need to be. So you can always change if you want to change, but if you can't change, then you can create the idea of it being your will. Oh, well, I wanted to be here anyway. I wanted to be cleaning the lavatories anyway. I'm doing this by an act of will, of free will. I'm acquiescing to the sacrifices demanded by this world and by the demiurge and his agents, and they can have their pound of flesh if they want it, but I don't have to give it to them if I don't want to. But the fact that I am is an act of will on my part. a rather kind of strange, perhaps Alice in Wonderland logic creeping in here. I mean, as appreciation is a kind of emotional thing attributed to the quarter, the water quarter. The fire quarter is connected to this idea of acquiescence. So it's kind of like the fire of acquiescence that is sweeping your soul, as it were, and consuming you, your attention. You're focused on the here and now of your acquiescence. So there's no regret involved. There's no kind of disgruntlement. You don't think this is not fair. It is completely. You can make it fair if you make this perception of fairness an act of will on your part. It doesn't need to be like this. So Jesus didn't need to be sacrificed, but he chooses to be sacrificed. And that's the thing you can follow. Basically, that Jesus' sacrifice can be a metaphor for your daily sacrifice, your daily compromise, as it were. And the fact that you will fall, you will become furious, fearful, forlorn, and frustrated with life. You will go into fickleness, and you will go into fakery and fantasy. You're a slob, and of course the Christian narrative has that Jesus becomes a slob like one of us, as Mary Black sings, and but you can see the world, as a hawk flying over the battlefield, if you like, through your analysis of the situation and through your appreciation and acceptance of what is. Um, and finally, attributed to the Earth quarter, is the thing about adaptation. I was going to put in here acceptance, but I've already covered that through acquiescence. To achieve acquiescence, you have to accept what is. But the idea of adaptation is quite active, in fact. Like all sentient beings, like all animals, like all plants, you're adapting to your environment, you're adapting to your genetics, and your genetics is creating adaptation for future generations. So you are a biological being, and the angel adaptation is an angel, a pragmatic angel, that creates it that is a metaphor for your willingness to adapt and be flexible to the world around you, and even to yourself. So that adaptation is part of self-knowledge, as it were. To know yourself is to adapt to everything around you, with which you are in relationship. And the universe is about relationships of various complex kinds, interlacing kinds. And you have to adapt. You either adapt before the thing happens, or you adapt to the consequences of whatever happens, whatever you have caused and whatever has been caused to you. So you can see that these angels are pragmatic. They are they are in the world. They are not trying to get out of this world. They're not trying to shirk the responsibility that comes with being in this world. And they're helping you to reconcile the fact that you are soul within your spirit, within matter. So they're helping you on the pragmatic level to recognize your duties, as it were, your sacred duty to survive, your sacred duty to increase, your sacred duty uh, to create order, and to so rather than disorder. So you're living an ordered life. So the world has your minimal attention. It's like that fantastic scene in the Social Network movie. Where the founder and CEO of Facebook says to the lawyer, you have my attention, but you have my minimal attention, with all this legal stuff that's going on. which doesn't affect me at all, which doesn't affect my dream of setting up Facebook at one little bit. So I'll pay whatever damages I'm supposed to pay, and I don't care. Look, I'm doing something which none of you could do in this room. I'm doing something which nobody has ever done, setting up the greatest social media network that's ever been, and ever will be. So really, I'm not sort of hiding under the table, worrying about lawsuits and blah 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 blah. I'm listening to the rain instead and thinking, how can I make Facebook even better than it is now? And one sees that somebody who is trying to sculpt something very successful in life, is perhaps or slightly, well, is in the world, and you might say, oh gosh, they're being a bit worldly, but they're sort of being artistic about being in the world. They're trying to do something which nobody's ever done before in society, or they're trying to go into the deepest caves that have ever been, or they're trying to go to the deepest part of the oceans, and they're doing something which is worldly and yet surpasses the world, surpasses what nature can do. And of course, nature can surpass itself according to our perception, which it does frequently. Um, so, in a sense, even though you're sort of a soul in this world, trapped in this world, in a way you can't get out, you can't shirk your responsibilities, uh, you can't go against your creative urges. If you want to create the best social media network that's ever been, then that's what you'll do. But at the same time, at some point, you'll probably want to step back and say, well, I don't want to be eaten up by the thing that I've created. I don't want my business to run me. I don't want it to run my life. I don't want to become a corporate drone. I want to remain a visionary, even if it's in the business world, and not just become like a business bureaucrat or corporate drone or an accountant. God help us. Um, and I want to, I'll even give up the business and do something else if necessary, rather than let it run my life. So the world doesn't, you try not to let the world run you, but of course it will run you. It'll run you on so many levels, and it's so easy to distract someone from their spiritual path. Um, you know, um, it would be easy, the CEO of the corporation takes up meditation, but it would be so easy to distract that CEO from a path of meditation and yoga. And even if they went into the forest, and became a renouncer, um, they still could be distracted, even in the deep forest, even the deepest meditation, because they are in this world, and the meditation occurs in this world. The renunciation takes place in this world, wherever, whatever happens in this world is by default, by definition, worldly. So in a sense, I wanted to create a video also talking about, the chariots again, and this idea of me having been created by my environment, my upbringing on one hand, my genetics on the other, and by demonic possession on the other. Various demons, many demons possess me, and are making me in this world and of this world if they can. But at some point, I'm going to reach up and I'm going to board the chariot. And the chariot perhaps represents soul awareness, and the charioteer is God. Um, and the horses are the spiritual impetus. And I'm going to go off with the charioteer on this chariot, um, pulled by the horses of ethics. Pulled by the horses of ethics. And I'm going to explore the multiverse, or the universe beyond these worlds, or beyond the worlds of the demiurge, even as I am, even as I have been tainted by my genetics, my environment, my upbringing, and demonic possession. And I suppose I'm going to get on this chariot because of the action of the angels of A. And I suppose on the practical level, you could daily focus or contemplate one of these angels of A. You could say, well, I will contemplate analysis of the world. I will contemplate the reason why analysis brings one to soul awareness. I will concentrate on appreciation, both of the sunrise and of the adversarial algorithm. On the other, I will focus and contemplate on my acquiescence to what I'm doing today. And the fact that on one hand it doesn't matter what I'm doing, because matter is nothing, of no value. And yet on the other, it needn't be like this. I could be doing something else. I could just up stakes and do something else in my life completely. And adaptation. I will contemplate the adaptive nature of my mind, body, and soul to my environment and to the people around me, and to the wholeness of it all, as it were. And so you can appreciate, you can contemplate these angels, contemplate these four words, and try to kind of think about the meaning and think about how they apply to your own life, and think about how they apply to the life of your family, for example, your community or your neighborhood, or even perhaps to your nation. But don't get too big, because the bigger you get, the more corrupted the system becomes, because the more in the world it becomes and of the world. But if you keep things simple, keep your contemplation simple and direct, you will be in this world, but you won't be of this world. That's the objective. So I hope that I've shown that the angels of A will help you reconcile this contradiction between in the world and of the world on a daily basis through some regimen of contemplation and just focusing on these angels. Um, I wouldn't say, I mean, people would say, do you want us to pray to these angels, for example? Well, I don't want you to do anything. I want you to find out what works best for you in regard to these angels. It could be, that you need to do a fancy 4-hour ritual every day to these angels, or you can do a simple 10-minute contemplation, or you can write about them or paint them, or you can make them into sigils, or whatever it is, whatever floats your boat, really. And I leave the how up to you. And so thank you very much for listening to this little bit of a ramble. And hopefully you will allow the four angels of A to make a difference in your life.